Hello and welcome. I am Scrapperlock and this is City of Heroes. We are with our Stalker, level 42, soloing the Stalker, going to level 43. It's been a few sessions since I've made a recording that I'm going to post. Hopefully I'll post this one. I've done a couple others. I wasn't particularly happy with them. I feel like I was rambling and not really saying anything that was going to be of interest to people, so hopefully this time we will say something that's of interest. I just got ambushed by the Cray. We're doing On the Run story arc, which is basically finding out about the evils of Cray and messing with their Cray-OS operating system that is actually designed to like mind control people and stuff. And so we're going to upload a virus to their network. And they've been ambushing me. And you didn't get to see a very ignominious death where I didn't realize I was going to get ambushed by the Malta because this is a Cray mission. And all of a sudden I got hit with a sapper from behind while I was just standing on a building talking to you guys. And yeah, they drained my endurance. Then I got hit with a stun and I couldn't get my defenses back up and they killed me. And that led to me getting the unyielding badge, which I don't know how many deaths it takes to do that. Is it 10? So if so, then you know how many faceplants we've had on this character. Whatever that number is, that's the one I just got. So we're on +2 missions still, and we are facing the Cray. The biggest pain in these guys is, of course, the Paragon Protectors. None of them have killed me yet, but what I've started doing against the Protectors is I fight them until they go into you can't hit me mode, you know, the little like I'm cheating and you can't hit me at all mode. My emoji is better than your emoji, that kind of thing. And by that I mean not emoji, but M-O-G. Moment of a glory. And so what I've started doing is hit overload and ignore them and just keep doing the mission until they run away from me. At that point, usually their buff is gone, and I can just go back and finish them off with Placate and Assassin Strike, that sort of thing. It's been working pretty well, and decreases the annoyance a little bit, except one of the times, again, I didn't film this, I almost got killed because, where did those guys, how did I not see those guys? One of the times I almost got killed because Overload ended while I was in the middle of a fight and I didn't realize it was going to end. And I had to get my defenses all back up and I almost died. But I made it out. Didn't faceplant. So as we go, one of the things we're going to talk about, and I don't know all the details of what this person said, but there's a guy who discusses RPG stuff, and he has a video about whether the players of an RPG need to learn the rules. Do they need to learn all the rules? And I thought he was going to argue that they do, because that's just sort of the impression I get from him. But he actually was arguing what I would have said, which is that they don't. You don't need to know all the rules, or actually, frankly, any of the rules in a role-playing game in order to play it. You need to know how to create a character, theoretically, but that can be done by the GM too. I mean, I actually ran a limited information campaign, as they call it in Champions, where I sat with each of the players and asked them to describe in words to me what their character could do as a superhero, and then I created the powers, and they didn't know what they were. Now, the problem is, I was talking to some very experienced Champions players, and they were clearly describing, they were saying things like, my character can shoot energy blasts, and I was like, no, 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 don't tell me the power, or my character can shoot no normal defense, or my character can shoot AP. I'm like, no, 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 don't tell me the power, describe what it does. Well, they're saying, I can shoot blasts out of my hands that can pierce armor, right? So it worked okay, but I think it would have worked a lot better with new players who didn't know anything about the powers, and they could just describe what their character could do. And then I always said, at least I could build anything in Champions. You describe it to me and I can convert it to game terms super easily. I was really good at that. And so you don't have to even know that, right? And classically, traditionally, ideally in a role-playing game, once the gameplay has begun and you're finished with character creation, what you're supposed to be doing is saying to the game master, my character would like to do X. My character would like to sneak up on this voltaic tank or Cray cryo tank and punch him in the back. What do I need to roll? and the GM says, okay, give me a stealth roll at -1 or whatever, and then you look down at your sheet, you figure out what your stealth d6 is, or throw d6 +2, whatever, you roll it, and then you give him the number, and then the GM says, okay, you seem to have gotten up there without him detecting you. Do you still want to punch him in the back? Yes. Okay, give me a fighting roll at +4, right? And then you say, okay, here's my roll, and then the GM says hit or miss. Right? If you miss, that's it. Maybe he notices you, maybe he doesn't. If you hit, then he'll say roll this for damage. Right? Now, maybe you've got it written on your character sheet what the damage roll is, and that's so he can just say roll damage, and you do it. And that's pretty much, in order to take the load off the GM, what a lot of groups do. But classically in Dungeons and Dragons, players didn't know. There was a Dungeon Master's Guide that had all the really complicated rules. Players had a bunch of rules in the player's handbook with the spells and everything, but you didn't actually have to know any of that in order to play the game. You could just say to the GM, what do I need to roll? Right? And the GM would tell you what to roll. And in fact, there are players these days who, because they know too much about the rules, will say, I'm going to make a stealth check. Right? And as a GM, I have to say, tell me what you want to do, and I'll tell you what check to make. Right? Sometimes they'll say, like, for example, in Dungeons and Dragons, you use a skill called Insight to see if you can detect fakery, somebody lying to you, right? And so sometimes players, when an NPC says something they don't believe, they'll say, can I make an Insight check? Because as a player, I don't believe him, and I don't think my character would believe him, right? And that's okay to ask for that. But what you really should say is, okay, my character doesn't really believe this. Is there something I can roll to see? And then the GM will say, make an Insight check at +1, or what have you, right? So I actually think, no, you don't need, not only don't you need to know all the rules as a player, I think that it's better if you don't. Because when you know all the rules, what this often leads to is the player gaming the system and doing things not that the character would do, but that makes that make the most sort of metagame sense of this thing will give us the highest probability of success, and the reason, and we players know that, even though the characters probably wouldn't. Now there's a fine line to walk, right? Because one of the things that, sort of one of the premises that I always operated under was that the players, so there's an old theory in ecology called optimal foraging theory, which is it's a hypothesis, really not a theory. The hypothesis says that animals are, because of natural selection, are sort of tuned, any population of organisms is tuned to feed on the diet that gives them the greatest profitability, the most energy for the shortest amount of time. And that natural selection would favor animals that are better at choosing that sort of a diet. And one of the assumptions of the model is that the animal knows, or behaves as it would if it knew, right? Behaves as if it knows the rules of the model. And a lot of people misinterpret that as the animals can do math now. They know what that this number is greater than that number. That's not what it means. What it means is that the animals are acting the way they would act if they could do the math, because the math would tell you what was optimal, right? And why do I bring this up? Same thing for player characters, right? Although they don't know the 2 hit numbers, right? Dark Phantom doesn't know these numbers. But after living in this world for a long time, she would have a sense of how hard she is to hit. That you could say would allow her to make decisions that are not very different from the decisions I as a player make, knowing these digital numbers, right? That the characters may not know what the insight skill is, but we do know that in this group, let's say, give you a fantasy name. What's a good fantasy name? Barg the Barbarian is easily fooled, i.e., he has a low insight skill, and Hassan the sorcerer usually is good at picking up lies, i.e., he has a high insight skill, right? So, yes, it's metagamey to say who's got the higher insight skill, right? But on the other hand, your characters adventuring with each other as long as they have would probably have a pretty darn good sense of who's better at detecting lies and who's more gullible. And who's paranoid and has false alarms and is thinking there are lies when everything's a lie when there's truth, right? They would have a sense of that, even if they can't, quote unquote, read each other's character sheet, which they obviously can't. All right, so there is a line of thinking that is that there, to some degree, the characters are familiar with the world they live in, just like we're familiar with the world we live in, right? There's a reason why there's an expression when pigs fly, right? Because pigs can't fly anatomically, physiologically, by physics. They cannot fly, right? And so that expression is telling us something about a world we understand the rules about, and that the rules of this world are that pigs and animals like them cannot fly, right? So I don't have to read the manual or use out of character information to know that. It's common knowledge in the world, right? And similarly, Dark Phantom doesn't have to read the rules on Mez to understand what 9.4 hull protection is. She might not be able to tell you, I have a 9.4, but what she can tell you is, I don't get stunned very often. I don't get dizzied very often. I don't get knocked back very often. Yeah, only an elite boss can do that to me, something like that, right? And even there, she may not know what a quote-unquote elite boss is, but she definitely knows Chernobog is harder to fight than just a regular Bone Daddy, right? So there's some of that. But there also can be a lot of metagaminess with knowing exactly how your spells work, knowing the exact area of effect, which you probably wouldn't know in real life, and that sort of thing. And so the fewer rules the players know by heart or at all, the less chance there is that you're going to get a metagamey response that's based on the game numbers. And the higher the probability that you're going to have the players actually playing the role rather than gaming the system. Also, it's just a lot more fun as a player to just play your role rather than worrying about the rule book and flipping through rules, right? At least for me. One of the reasons I always wanted to be a player and never got a chance to was because I didn't want to have to worry about those rules. What do we have over here? So we're looking for the way to upload the virus. Haven't heard any glowies yet. Oh, cool, purple. So we're going to wait for this to recharge because that'll help us out. I mean, it always helps, but especially useful against purples. Oh, shoot. I clicked it and it didn't click. Come on. There we go. I do like you can self-interrupt. That's pretty cool. So yeah, I think that in most cases in a role-playing game, it's perfectly fine and actually preferable for the players to not know a lot about the rules. Let the DM worry about, or GM worry about the rules, and you just play your character. And, you know, you eventually can learn some of the patterns of how the rules work as you play. You'll eventually learn how to make a soak roll in Savage Worlds. You'll eventually learn how to make a roll to unshake. You'll eventually learn how to spend bennies and how they work and all the rest of that. But you don't have to develop all that overhead that early. You can mostly just play and say to the GM, here's what I would like to do. What do I need to roll in order to do it? Now the GM might say make a spirit roll at -4, and then you go, okay, well that's pretty unlikely to succeed. Is there something else I can do? You know, I don't mind that. But it's a lot more fun. I remember my players when we started Savage Worlds, They didn't really know the rules. They were playing Coffin Rock. And the very first battle they got into against a couple of zombies, wasn't zombies. I can't remember what it was. It was ghouls in a graveyard. They fought two ghouls, and ghouls are extras. And my guys, the players are wild cards. And the rule is, each PC should be powerful enough to fight 3 extras. So technically, I could put like 12 extras into that battle, and theoretically, they should be able to win. The ghouls are a bit tough. I just put 4 in, 1 per character. I figured that should be fine for our first battle. And 2 appeared nearby, and then there were 2 further back in the graveyard who were going to come in on a later round. And right away, the first ghoul moved up to one of the players and like shook and wounded him. And also, the 2 of the characters failed their initial fear check. In fact, one of the players said, "Are we supposed to roll fear here?" And I was like, "Oh yes, you are. Let's do that. Everybody, give me a fear check." Well, what is that? Roll spirit. And so they rolled spirit, and 2 of them failed. And I said, "Do you want to use the Benny to reroll?" And the first player said, "You know what? No, I don't want to use the Benny to reroll. I want to see what happens," because they didn't know what was going to happen. So then I had them roll on the fear table, and one of them was panicked and had to run away, and the other one, I got an adrenaline surge or something, or shaken. I can't remember. And so they were like, "Oh, this wasn't that bad. Okay, that we now know something about what happens when you fail a fear check." But 2 of them were feared. One of them got shaken and wounded, and their initial reaction was, "Let's get out of here. Let's run. We need to flee," right? And they didn't know, is this like is having one person wounded, like, should we get out of here? It might have even taken 2 wounds, right? So they're like, "Okay, let's get out of here." And they started to back away. And my best friend, I've told this story, I think, my best friend was like, "You know what? We can move after we shoot, right?" I said, "Yeah." So he said, "I want to shoot one of these things." He said, we don't know how, they didn't know how tough they were. They had no idea how hard it would be for them to defeat a Deadlands ghoul. They knew D&D ghouls, right? If we were in D&D, they would have known, they all know how many hit points roughly the ghouls have and what their 2 hit is and what their armor class. Even if they haven't read the book, they fought ghouls enough and characters like them to have some sense of how hard they are, but they didn't know anything about Deadlands, right? And so my best friend was like, "I'm going to take a shot." So he took a shot and took out the ghoul in 1 hit because they weren't wild cards, so 1 wound took him out. And he was like, "Okay, guys, I don't think we need to run. They're not that tough. We just need to 1 more wound on these guys. Yeah, let's stay." Right now, I didn't bring out the second ghoul because they were so freaked out by these 2, the second set of ghouls. They were so freaked out by these 2 ghouls. I figured, okay, there's some wounding. They got shaken. They were afraid. It was enough. And so they had a lot of fun. And one of the things they said afterwards was what was really cool about it was that they didn't know anything about the system, how it worked, what was dangerous or not. Why is somebody attacking me when I'm in hide? How did that happen? This has happened to me a couple of times now. I know I've been sloppy about it, but how did a guy come up from behind me while I was hidden and hit me while I was still hidden? I don't think I walked past. Was somebody under? Were they behind the door? Like inside the door and I didn't see them? I don't know. It's weird. Anyway, they all said that one of the coolest things was, since they didn't really know the rules of Savage Worlds very well, and they didn't have a calibration, right? They didn't have any sense in their heads. It wasn't like they hadn't calibrated for what's a tough battle in Savage Worlds, what's a battle we have to run from. They really didn't know. And it was actually a lot of fun for them to have that mystery, that unknown element, right? That question mark in their minds. It felt really tense. And the one guy said, "This is awesome because Deadlands is a horror setting and it's supposed to be scary." And he this battle was scary because we didn't know what they could do. We got, we failed fear checks right away. Then somebody got wounded and we're ready to run and they almost fled. and then they managed to succeed and defeat the enemy, and it was a really fun battle because of the unknown quantity, right? Because they just did not know what was too much for them to handle and what wasn't. Now, I think my guess is that their default assumption for me as a GM would be that I'm not going to purposely put in something that's too much for them to handle, and that would be true. What? Who's shooting me? Oh, these guys. Yeah, see? The guys above almost always see you from below. You're going to come down here? Yeah, just come on down. You're the next contestant on The Price is Right. So I think they would say, they know me, Scrapper is a good GM. He's not going to start a campaign in a new game by putting in something that's too hard for us to handle. However, they also knew I had never GM'd Savage Worlds before, and I could have very easily accidentally put something too hard for them to handle into the game without meaning to. Which is why I started the ghouls, right, with 2 up front and 2 as reinforcements. If the battle was too easy, they were going to move forward, right? So if the players had, in the very first, by the way, I recolored my I-beams to be dark blue. They're cool, but they're a little hard to see on a map like this. If the players in the very first round, nobody had been afraid, and they had like just taken both ghouls out, or one of the ghouls out, shaken the other one, then yeah, I would have had the other 2 ghouls show up, and maybe more ghouls show up. I was willing to be dynamic about it, and to see what happens, sort of Schrodinger's ghouls, right? How many ghouls there are depends on how the fight is going, because I didn't know yet in Savage Worlds what was going to be. Like, I listened to the book. If I listened to the book and put 12 ghouls in there and had them fight 12 ghouls in the very first round, they would have died. But I was like, nah, I can't do that the very first combat. That doesn't make any sense at all. That's why I just had like 1 each. We're just going to have a quick little fight. And then when they were running from just 2 of them, I was like, all right, I won't put the other 2 in there. So, hang on, I just got a message. Spam. Don't know what that was about. It's just like a little news piece. Click on this link to find more. Yeah, that's got to be some kind of a phishing attempt. All right, do I have... All right, so this is the only other elevator. All right. So, well, my point about this story is they found the experience in the first couple of sessions of Deadlands of not knowing how to play the game and learning how to play it. They found it really fun. I remember the first time they went to a general store or something, and my best friend really wanted to find, there was like it was a wrecked general store, and what he was hoping to find was like a lockpick kit or something. And I said, okay, well, the chances of that are pretty low. Give me a notice roll at like -4 or something. I can't remember the whole story, and he didn't get it, right? And then I said to him, well, this is Savage Worlds. If you want, you can give me a Benny, and I'll say you found one. And he was like, okay, cool. Let's see how that works. So he handed me a Benny, and he said, all right, what happens? I said, well, you're rumbling, you're like sort of searching around, and yeah, you find this lockpick kit, and it's got some lockpicks in it. It's still in pretty good shape, right? And so that's where he learned, oh, cool, Benny's, like this is a cool way to do this, right? And so my friends will do that a lot. Now, if I give you a Benny, can this happen? Yes, that's a great way to use Bennies in Savage Worlds. On the Wildcards ETU YouTube show, Gaurav Gulati used it that way a lot. Like every few sessions, he would ask for something, and the GM would be like, no, you probably don't have that on you. And he'd say, how about if I give you a Benny? The GM, okay, yes, if you give me a Benny, you have it, right? The whole idea is it's a limited resource. You can't just do whatever you want. But if you're willing to spend one of your only Bennies, which could be used to soak wounds and re-roll stuff, if you're willing to spend that resource, on um, the did I miss a glowy back there? Yeah, I did. No, there's over here. Okay. If you're willing to spend a Benny on this thing you want it so badly, I'm willing to let you decide to have that, but you've got to spend a resource on it. You can't just say, "Oh, I want to have it," right? And so it's a really nice way to regulate that so that it can happen, but not all the time. Right? It's a really cool mechanic. I love it. I always encourage my friends to use it, but again, they had never done that. So those first few sessions when they were learning things like how to use bennies, when to soak wounds, when to be afraid in combat, and when it was no big deal, that was a really fun experience for them because other than the new girl who had that experience in D&D and really enjoyed it, right? None of them had played a new role-playing game for a long time at that point, I think. And so it was really fun for them to encounter the rules of a new system and learn it and enjoy it. And so there's a certain amount of fun mystery when you first encounter a new role-playing game where you don't have that sort of calibration in your head of what's dangerous, what's not, what's easy, what's not. And just for that little bit of time, when you're playing a novice character who's new to being an adventurer or a hero in a world that you're new to as well, you can often have an experience that feels more like your character's experience. That is to say, the things that would scare your character actually kind of scare you a little bit. And you're not this jaded person who has encountered D&D ghouls 37 times before and knows exactly what they can do and what they can't do. But you're somebody who doesn't know anything about this and is surprised and startled and hopefully a little bit excited by it. All right, Paragon Protectors, Overload, Accuracy. Should have done that first. Here we go. I'm going to do what I can to take him out, but he's almost certainly going to go into Moment of Glory. Here it comes. Placate. Yeah. How I thought he did it there. He didn't do it. Oh, now he dulled pain. Now, if all they did was dull pain, that wouldn't be bad, but then he Moment of Glories too, which is really annoying. And unfortunately, there's nobody else around to fight. Where is this Chloe? I'm not seeing it. Oh, here. Hopefully he won't hit me, and this way we get that. There we go, mission complete. Bye. Yeah, I'm not waiting for him. I could, but I'm not going to bother. They're too annoying. I gave up some XP. I'll give up the XP. Like, Paragon Protectors, that emoji is just too annoying. If it just dropped me to 25% to hit or something, I wouldn't care. But the fact that it completely floors me is super annoying. Let's autocomplete this, because I don't like these types of missions. And then we will call her again. And we've got the warrant, and you've located the network where Countess Cray is hiding. Oh boy. I think we're going to try her at +2. I don't think she's that tough. I'm going to pause here, guys, and let Overload wind down, and then I will bring you back. And we'll go after Countess Cray. All right, folks, we are back. Now, we do have 8 minutes and 7 minutes until Overload recharges, so if we get to Countess Cray in 7 minutes, which I doubt we will, we're going to have to wait, because I don't want to start a fight against her without it. My guess is the best way to do it is going to be to burn some inspirations here, including some lucks, let them start with them, and then as they fade, hit Overload, and try to finish the fight with that, so that, because Overload only lasts a couple minutes, and fights with EBs can, especially +2 EBs, where your damage is reduced and your 2-hit is reduced, can be quite long. I don't think it'll be longer than the Overload, but I always like to give myself that little bit of a buffer. So my plan is we've got some 25s and some 12s, so probably to pop, let's put them like this, pop these two and maybe these four, start with that, or maybe pop a couple of these, we'll see how it goes, and these two, if she starts hitting me too much, I'll pop more of them. But what I'd like to do, because this lasts 60 seconds, right? So we've got a minute with these two buffing our defense up to almost 60% and a couple of these, and then the next minute a couple more and these, right? And then after 2 minutes, pop overload. That's my thinking. We'll see how it goes, right? If she's impossible to hit, or if she's really good at hitting me, we may have to go straight into overload immediately, but we'll see what happens. What is Countess Cray doing in this dingy cave? Why isn't she in some sort of a mansion, upscale mansion in Founders Falls or something? You would think how rich she is. So we are +2 here. Let's see how we do against her and +2. Obviously the rest of the mission shouldn't be a problem. The biggest issue will be if there's a Paragon Protector real close to her and we can't avoid aggroing both. That might make it unwinnable, because it takes so long to defeat the Paragon Protectors that our inspirations or our overload might run out. So we'll just have to see what happens. I hear a glowy, I think. Okay, let's look around, okay, because I want to make sure she's not here. All right. So for those of you who've been following the channel, and I don't know if you guys care or not, but just as a little closure, follow-up, whatever you want to call it, as you know, I've been talking about tabletop war games, and these are sort of the hex and counter. Not saying the word encounter like an encounter in D&D, but hexes and counters. These kind of war games. I ordered 4. I have them, and I've started playing them, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. That's really the only follow-up I have. I'm right now playing American Tank Ace, which plays almost like a role-playing game, where you have a character that runs a tank and his crew, and characters can be killed, and they can be wounded, and they can gain XP, and they can level up, and that sort of thing. Is she here? Don't see her. That's a lot of fun. I also have Carrier Battle Philippine Sea, which is a solitaire. These are both solitaire games. That's a solitaire game that seems very complex. I probably won't be playing that right away. Mostly because there are tons. One of the things is with these games, there are tons of cardboard counters. But unlike in the old days when I think at least Victor Games used to give you a little tray that you could store them in, these don't come with trays in the box. At least none of the ones that I got. Well, one of them did. Conflict of Heroes does. They have their own trays, and I think everything will fit in the trays. I haven't punched the counters yet. Very high quality material, that particular one. It's very nicely made. Maybe the best one I have in terms of just the components. Although the components of all the games seem quite nice and very high quality. So Carrier Battle Philippine Sea has got like 1,000 counters or something. I don't know. It's a lot. And I want to have counter trays. American Tank Ace has just 250 or something, and those are a pain in the neck just using the little plastic bags that they give you to hold them. It's just really hard to find stuff. Having trays where you can sort through them and you can see them more easily is much better. And so my intention is to buy some trays, probably from a company called GMT, which makes these games. And then the bigger games I will start messing around with, because then I'll be able to put the counters in the trays. The other game I have is called The Traces of War, which is supposedly a really fun game. It claims to have high solitaire suitability. And people say that it does. I don't know because I haven't read the rules or started playing it yet. So just a little update. And at some point I have to order for those trays from GMT. You can get other trays from Amazon. There actually was a company called Cube for me, I think. Strange name, that makes a bunch of stuff like this, including counter trays. They're a little more expensive, like twice as much, $4 or $5 each instead of $2 each. But and they seem better. There are many different styles to them. A lot of people like them. There are even pre-made counter tray sets for individual games, so that you know that these specific trays will fit all the counters from this game, because one of the players has tried it, and they even have photos of it, and the players will contact the company and say, this is the kind of kit you need to store all the counters and cards in this game, and the company will sell it as a kit, which is really cool. But the shipping was insane because it was from it's from overseas, and Poland or Germany or something. And so the I am loving these I-beams, I gotta tell you. The it was going to cost me more money in shipping than the actual trays. And I kind of draw the line at that. If the shipping is going to cost more than half, and certainly as much as the thing I'm buying, I don't buy it. Generally, unless it's something I absolutely have to have for some reason, which is almost never true, I don't do that. Like, I'm going to spend, what was it? I think it was $37 or $38 on the product, and the total shipping cost, because of tariffs and everything, was going to be, the total cost was going to be over $75. And I was like, nah, I'm not paying $75 for like what amounts to 5 or 6 counter trays. No. So I went to GMT, and it was really hard to find their trays on their site. I'd heard about their trays and that those are the default. They look like the old Avalon Hill trays. Black plastic, little covers. It's a Juggernaut. I thought that was her for a sec. And those are like 10 for $22. I don't know what the shipping is going to be, but I don't think it's going to be anywhere near that much. And the advantage of GMT is the shipping rates for any company are going to be by weight, right? So these things don't weigh that much. If I order a game from them or two and add those in, it probably will be the same shipping as just the game or two, and I'll get the trays, right? So I'm planning to get that. There are also some on Amazon that you can get that I don't know if they're any good or not, but the GMT ones are just kind of standard. So yeah, the Q for me ones look really cool, but I'm not paying like $40 shipping to buy $35 worth of trays. That's absurd. My mother always used to complain about that, how the shipping is more than the product. Sometimes it is, and if it is, I generally won't buy the product. Just, it's absurd. I'm not saying, by the way, that these are not real shipping costs that this company has to deal with, because it's international shipping and that's very expensive. But I'm not going to pay that. Not for counter trays. I will go to a dime store or what are they, like a dollar store, and buy like hobby crafting trays. I have one of those to put my Legos in, and I'll put my pieces in there. Now, the only reason I'm not doing that is because those are usually too big to fit in the box, and then I'm going to have the trays separate, which I really don't want to do. But I can if I have to, and I'm certainly going to do that over paying $30 or $40 for some counter trays to ship them, So, anyway. So those are the games I have, at least in terms of the quality of the games, the quality of the product, the actual production quality of the boxes and the components. So far, as I can see, all of them are quite good. And I definitely feel like Conflict of Heroes has some of the highest production quality that I've ever seen in a tabletop war game. And so What are you doing here? Let's get over here. Get over here so you're on the ground and I can fight you more easily. Come on. And of course all I'm going to do is placate you. And then assassinate you. Sucks to be you. So Conflict of Heroes, very high quality. I feel like the Traces of War also super high quality. The other two are high quality. They're all really nice. Nice, good sturdy boxes, beautiful maps, well done counters. Very cool. So anyway, I'm enjoying that, and I've been playing some of that. There she is. She is +2. Is there anybody else around her? She's got those little triangles, which means she's got defense running. She's going to be hard to hit. I think the story on that is when the triangles are up, she's less vulnerable than when they're down. So here's what we're going to do, guys. Let's try it. I don't know how one would time an attack to hit when the triangles are down, but given animation times and stuff, it would be pretty darn tough. Oh, she's not so bad. Placate. Nice hit there. So let's go ahead and we can add more inspirations. Haven't really needed overload so far. She's doing mental to me, but she's not as brutal as the Madam of Mystery because she doesn't seem to be attacking me. She seems to be attacking me. Well, I have good psionic defense, so seems okay. That got her. Not bad at all, guys. I mean, we used our inspirations, maybe overused them. Kicked her butt. Yeah, she is not bad. So it's really interesting that different elite bosses have different difficulties per your character, right? Some bosses are going to be easier for your character to fight than others. And then some bosses are just going to be hard for everybody. Like I think the Envoy of Shadows is probably hard for everybody. And I suspect the Madam of Mystery is really hard for everybody. And we got reward merits. Where are we on that now? How are we doing? We have 927, so we have just under 300 to go to get our ATOs. So my guess is, level 44 or so. By 44 or 45, we should be able to get those ATOs, but also then slot in Dr. Boone. So my goal is, I feel like we've shown enough of how this character plays with just SOs and IOs, right? Like training IOs. So hopefully the soloing ability of this character is not in doubt and has been well demonstrated. So I'm not going to worry about that. And as we get into our ATOs then and get the reward merits, then I will start slotting in those sets, and we'll start putting sets on the character so that hopefully by the time she's 50 we'll have a pretty solid set of sets, shall we say. And I'm just going to, I know there's a trainer here, but we're just going to go to Luminary. It's easiest. And now I'm level 43. So we got some more slots coming, right? Because 44 is the next power. And the next power will be physical perfection or whatever it is, because I like that. And that'll be good for our endo. But now we're going to do slots. Okay, so now we have some choices to make. Do I want to add some laser beam eyes? I don't think we need anything in our primary. I feel like you guys tell me I could always add more slots to it later. I don't really feel like we need anything more on placate. I don't feel like we need anything more on build-up. We could put 2 hit buffs on it, but I don't really feel like that's necessary. And what I was looking at was possibly getting an endurance modification set for an energy drain, right? or beefing this. I don't think we need anything here right now. Also, we could beef these two. Let's back out of this. Let's take a look. Right? Let's be informed about this. We have this thing. This is the one we like. Right? Power transfer. Let's take a look on the auction house at just how insane this thing is. My guess is, given how nice this is going to be hundreds of millions to buy these recipes. But let's just see, because I don't know what the market is for this. So this is power transfer. And let's go for whatever our level. It's fine, 43. Oh, they're not bad. So I have accuracy, damage, recharge, endurance. So that's this one. We already have that. What about this one? Accuracy, damage, endurance. These aren't bad. Heal self. Oh, there it is. 5 million for that one. This one, not bad. This one, not bad. Not terrible. Not terrible. These are non-terrible. Other than this one, right? Chance to heal self. Okay, everybody wants that one. If we look at the level we'd probably want, which would be 45. They're millions. 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 Right? I guess it's all the same. They're just telling us that category of them, not the individual one. So, this may be very hard, if not impossible, to get. However, having 5 of them, which is all we could do right now anyway, does get our accuracy up. I've never bothered with the endurance modification guys. Now, building them is going to be another story. I don't know how good we're going to be at doing that. But I've never done the endurance modification guys, but I feel like it's potentially worth it. The heal, I mean, that'll be nice to have. I feel like that's potentially really worth it. The other options are slotting overload and disrupt. Now, the thing with overload is its recharge defaults to 16 minutes. We can only get it down to 8. This is weird because when I've used it, I feel like, well, it does 12, right? Yeah, there's a recharge on it. And there's always been a recharge on it, so I've never seen it be 16. We can only get it down to 8. Is it worth, say, triple slotting this thing for recharge to bring it down to 8? I don't know. How often do I use it? The defense, sure, I could get it up to plus 60%. Do I really need that? I mean, I guess eventually I will. So let's think about what we're going to slot. We're going to build at level 45. We're going to get the physical perfection. That's going to need 5 slots, which will be done at 46 and 7, let's say. That gives us level 48 to put a slot on energy drain if we put 3 on it now, and that'll be 6 slotted. 49, we're going to get another power. That'll probably be an irrelevant power. Conserve energy or something that I won't slot. And then 50 just gives me 3 slots. So what I could do is triple slot overload for defense. And go ahead and put the set on energy drain. And I'm tempted to do that because I've never put a set on one of these things. But the other thing is I might want to 6 slot this and put a set on overload. We might want to 5 slot these things and put sets on them. We could leave physical perfection without, just slot the endurance and not the health. I'm very torn because I feel like I know I won't regret slots on overload. But I could regret slots on energy drain. So I'm going to play it safe. Whoops, no, that's not what we want. I'm not actually in the train up. Let's play it safe and go ahead and get our defenses on overload. Because I know there's probably good sets that I can put on there. I'm just not sure about the endurance. I've never bothered to slot an endurance modification power before, so now I want to go to the base. So I'm a little leery of doing that. I know you can respec, but respecing is such a pain in the neck that I really not interested in doing that right now. I do like this endurance mod set, and I might do it later. But for now, I think we're going to wait. Let's sell this junk, and we're just going with. Wait, is this defense? This is defense. So we might. I don't know if we have enough defense here. Sorry to jump around, but let's see if we. I don't know if we have enough defense here that we can slot in IOs. So let's see. Defense. Oh. Okay, let's see. We don't have a defense thing in here. What is this? This do it debuff we don't want. Defense debuff we don't want. Touch of the Nickness we do. That's accurate healing. That might be good. Slow movement we don't want. And range damage. Well, range damage could go on the I-beams, but yeah, you probably don't need that. Especially not if it's going to be using that thing. Alright, our salvage isn't full yet, but let's go ahead and make a couple of these. That's it? Okay. Let's go over here and see, do we have any defenses? We don't. Alright, so for now, we will go ahead and slot this in. And we don't need those things. So we can sell those. To the nurse. And buy some luck. And buy some heal. No, some endurance. You know, I realized as I was watching one of my older videos, I put heal in the wrong place. Normally I put heal over here and endurance in the middle. Doesn't matter, I guess. I'm used to it now, but historically I've had my defensive stuff, which is healing yourself and defending yourself over here, and my offensive stuff here, and the endurance is in the middle because it's neutral. At least that was always my logic. How are we doing on time? 54. Okay. So I think we're going to stop here, guys. We've got our character's new power. Or we got our character's new slots. Yeah, I chickened out. I mean, I was just afraid I was going to regret this energy drain later in the build. It's fine now, but as I get physical perfection, I normally 6 slot that. I don't know if I'm going to. I will at least get it to 3 for the endurance. Um, I know I want the defense buffed in overload, right? Just because, no, wrong thing. Just because you can't have too much defense, right? We want to, yeah, maybe we go over the cap. That's fine. I could be defense debuffed, right? And so these guys are going to um, resist it, but the more higher the defense is, the more resistance we have, the less it's going to affect me. Are we going to be able to buff this? I don't know. I'd like to put some damage on it and probably another accuracy on it because when runners are running, you want to hit them. But again, I don't know if we're going to have enough slots for all that. We just need like 5 more slots than they give you to really put everything everywhere I want on this character, and we just don't have it yet. So and we just don't have that. So never mind yet. They just don't give it to you. One of the problems is this laser beam eyes thing, right? To deal with the runners. Normally I don't have that because a lot of other melee sets have some kind of a ranged attack that you can do, like focus from claws. So when somebody runs, I just hit him with that. But this one doesn't have any of that other than the fear, which I don't have and I don't think I'm going to get because it's going to require slotting and I'm not going to have the slots, right? We need some powers that don't require slotting. And unfortunately in this set, most of the powers require slotting. So at 44, we're going to get probably physical perfection. 47 we'll get conserve energy. I don't know what we're going to get at 49. I really wish instead of getting another power at 49, they just gave me 3 slots. Because that would be enough. Then I would have enough for energy drain. But we'll see. And I got to look into the defense sets now to see, do I want to put a slot on each of these guys and this one? Because some of the good defense sets require 5 slots for some reason. They have 5, but not 6. Not all of them, but some, quite a few of the good ones. I might have a couple actually that I can show you. Where are we going this way? I don't know if I have them, but let's take a look. Unfortunately, got to pull them out of here. That's okay. So this one only has 5. Kismet. You see, it only goes up to 5. So Red Fortune has 6, but Kismet only has 5. And Kismet gives us an improvement to recharge time, as well as regeneration. Now Red Fortune, the 6th one ups your defense, but the 5th one does recharge time, and the 4th one does damage. So it's a pretty nice set. Kismet's a weaker set, but it's pretty decent. So I might possibly do Kismet on some of the defenses and then maybe do Red Fortune on Overload. Not sure. We'll see how it goes. So I'll have to do some thinking. We have quite a bit of influence, so we can afford a few that are worth a few million, but we only have 40 million, right? So I can't go buying like a set where each one of the enhancement recipes go from between 5 and 10 million, because that would be 30 to 60 million, and then I'd have to pay to craft them. So probably not. But we'll see what we've got when we get there. Until next time, I am Scrapperlock, and this has been Soloing the Stalker.